Welcome to the Dover Air Force Base Compatible Use Study, Borrow Pit Interactive Planning Session. You are attending our virtual option for this planning session, and we are so glad you are here with us. This presentation is focused on the existing borrow pit, located at 3700 Bay Road in Dover, Delaware. We have prepared an overview presentation that summarizes the study and the reason for this planning session, as well as individual presentations to further explain the feedback and information we are trying to gather in these sessions. Please review the overview presentation first. This will provide critical information to inform you of the overall study and assist you in providing feedback. Following the overall presentation, please review each individual presentation and answer the series of questions following each presentation. Your feedback is very important to us. The overview presentation will discuss a brief project summary, background, study area, purpose, identification of key stakeholders who have been very active in our study, the current use of this land use, zoning, Dover Air Force Base constraints, and more information about the next borrow pit meeting, as well as the overall study timeline. This study was initiated because military installations play a vital role in our national defense through the support of military testing, training, and base support operations. Military installations, including the Dover Air Force Base, serve as a major economic engine, accounting for thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in economic activity in the state of Delaware and nationwide. However, pressures from incompatible civilian development can create restrictions on the Air Force Base, threatening operations, maintenance, and security. Incompatible civilian development can also threaten public safety. With hundreds, if not thousands of acres of privately owned land surrounding the Air Force Base, it is very important that compatible uses surrounding the Dover Air Force Base be studied and identified. All governments, local, state, and federal, are responsible to support national defense by supporting Department of Defense missions such as the Dover Air Force Base. As a result, grant funding was made available through the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, OLDCC, to begin a compatible use study in October of 2021 for the Dover Air Force Base. The study examines the surrounding areas of the Dover Air Force Base and builds on the Air Installations Compatible Use Zones, ACUS study. The study will provide a roadmap to advise future land use and planning decision makers. This is the first compatible use study for the Dover Air Force Base. The study area is comprised of a 5-mile radius around the Dover Air Force Base, including key Federal Aviation Regulation Part 77 airspace and noise contours. I will go into more detail about this later in the presentation. In order to protect and support the long-term sustainability and operability of the Dover Air Force Base, the purpose of this study is to enhance communication between agencies and key stakeholders while improving collaboration. The study will analyze ways to set recommendations for land use decisions that protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public and Dover Air Force Base personnel. The study will incorporate the economic vitality of the surrounding communities as well. The goal is for all entities, both the Air Force Base and surrounding landowners, to work together to find land use solutions that allow for economic prosperity for all, while maintaining the security and safety for all. The study will identify potential issues and conflicts between land uses and their compatibility with the base, while developing comprehensive mitigation efforts to solve those conflicts. All throughout the process of this study, we have and will continue to engage and inform the community Your participation and feedback is very important to us. Key stakeholders have been invited to participate extensively in this study. They include Dover Air Force Base, DelDOT, who is also a project sponsor, City of Dover, Kent County, DENREC, the Office of State Planning, Safety and Homeland Security, and the Dover-Kent County Metropolitan Planning Organization. These stakeholders have attended numerous meetings, assisted in implementing our public involvement strategy, and provided extensive data and information to help make this study a success. We have completed approximately 60% of this study to date, including holding an initial community workshop to introduce the project and solicit feedback in May, 25 individual key stakeholder interviews to discuss potential land use conflicts, growth, long-range plans, and concerns. Currently, you are participating in an interactive planning session for the borrow pit located at 3700 Bay Road. We will hold a second public workshop in November, and our compatibility report will be completed by the end of the year. Today is our first of 2 interactive planning sessions to discuss future land use opportunities for the borrow pit. These land use opportunities are a discussion for the long-range future and are intended to be a proactive set of options should the borrow pit owners cease operations and seek to redevelop or sell. The area circled in pink is the portion of the study area that we are discussing today. This focus will allow us to take a deeper dive into the opportunities and concerns with future land use in this location. During today's meeting, you will have the opportunity to provide input on various land use options, including active and passive recreation, conservation, and economic growth, to name a few. Currently, the area known as the borrow pit has 2 sand and gravel pits within the 5-mile radius of the Dover Air Force Base. This site has been in operation since 1950 with 3 total parcels. The most recognizable one is seen from State Route 1, directly across from the Air Force. Current operations at this site include a hot mix or asphalt plant and a sand quarry. Materials from these operations are distributed throughout Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. Materials are also brought in from other quarries. This site is one of the top 2 suppliers of construction aggregate in Delaware. All materials are brought in and off the site through trucking. This is an active business with no timeline or expectation to stop operating anytime soon. This discussion on the borrow pits is meant to provide guidance to the current or future landowners should the operation cease and the owners seek to redevelop or sell the property. The goal of this compatible use study is to serve both the near-term and long-term future of the Dover Air Force Base. Therefore, it is important to us to include this discussion in our analysis. The following maps provide a closer look at where the borrow pits are located. Looking at this map, you can see the triangular crossings of the Dover Air Force Base runways near the top. Toward the bottom of the map, you can see several multi-shaped areas holding water circled in pink. This is the area of the borrow pits that we will be discussing. Here you can see a zoomed-in map of the borrow pit. Here you can see in the hatched area lands owned by the Dover Air Force Base. I will get into more detail shortly on what these classifications mean, but you can see in the green shade an area called the clear zone, which carries certain restrictions on land use that must be followed for the safety and security of all. In the orange is the Accident Potential Zone 1, which also carries certain land use restrictions. I will now explain what is meant by the Clear Zone and Accident Potential Zone 1, so that discussions on land use throughout the borrow pit take these constraints into account. The Clear Zone and Accident Potential Zones extend from the takeoff and landing paths of the Air Force Base runways. These areas carry very specific constraints on land use to ensure that the land uses in these areas are compatible with the base mission. They are in place to protect the health, safety, and welfare of all individuals, both civilian and military personnel. The clear zones and accident potential zones are developed from noise contours which are shown in this map. The Dover Air Force Base lies in the yellow area at the center of the map. The straight red lines at the center of the map in the yellow-colored area are the Dover Air Force Base runways. The other colored lines represent noise contours generated from the Air Force Base operations. For example, the blue line labeled 80 means noise decibels within that line can reach up to 80 decibels as the base is operating. As you move further away from the base, noise decibels begin to reduce. Land use restrictions are in place to match the type of land use with the potential for high noise activity. In addition, based on an analysis of major accidents occurring within 10 miles of an Air Force installation, it was determined that the most number of accidents occurred within the clear zone, which is the area nearest to the base, that I show as a green square or rectangle on all the maps you will see during this discussion. A slightly reduced accident potential, but still the second highest potential, exists in the accident potential zone 1 that is shown as an orange rectangle on all the maps you will see during this discussion. Both of these areas require numerous constraints to protect the mission of the base, its operability and viability, as well as the safety of both military personnel and civilians. Within the clear zone and accident potential zone 1, APZ1, the Air Force maintains bird, wildlife, aircraft strike hazard monitoring, known as BASH. BASH tracks the movement of birds looking for areas where clusters of birds or migratory birds are gathering. Through easements and agreements within those easements, the Air Force has the right to enter areas where birds are gathering and discharge explosives or firearms to mitigate the number of birds in the area. Land uses that attract birds are strictly prohibited in the clear zone and APZ1. The Air Force has prepared a list of the highest probability of bird species to conflict with aircraft. They are shown on this slide. As a result, the Air Force has prepared this map showing the clear zones and accident potential zones for the Dover Air Force Base. The red lines are the runways. Directly adjacent to the runways are the clear zones. Remember, the clear zones are area where the highest decibels of noise are generated and also where the highest probability for accidents are located. These are shown here in green. Further out from the clear zone is accident potential zone 1, shown in orange, labeled APZ1. You can see the borrow pit area that we are discussing in this presentation, circled in the pink oval. To summarize, the clear zone is an obstruction-free surface area on the ground symmetrically centered on the extended runway centerline, beginning at the end of the runway, extending outward 3,000 feet. It is shown here in green. Accident potential zone 1 begins at the outer end of the clear zone and is 5,000 feet long. It is shown here in orange. In the clear zone, accident potential is high enough and noise decibels are also high enough that land use restrictions are limited to vacant or limited agricultural uses. Very few uses are possible in this area, and the number of people allowed to be present in this area are also very few and limited in numbers. APZ1 allows less than 25 people per acre to be present at one time. Land uses are still very constrained due to the noise decibels and accident potential. This slide shows some of the possible land uses in this area. Discussions about these specific land uses will go into more detail in the individual presentations that you are encouraged to watch after this presentation. In addition to allowable land uses, there are also restrictions in the clear zone and accident potential zone, including the release of any substance that would impair visibility or interfere with the operation of aircraft, such as steam, dust, or smoke. Light emissions through direct or indirect methods that could interfere with a pilot's vision. This could include the reflective effects of a solar farm. Electrical emissions that could interfere with aircraft communication systems or navigational equipment. And any land use that attracts birds or waterfowl, including sanitary landfills, waste transfer stations, stormwater retention ponds, created wetland areas, certain vegetation, and structures within 10 feet of aircraft approach departure areas. Additional constraints to be aware of include the Dover Air Force Base's long-range plans for growth and redevelopment, wetlands and protected lands that surround the Borrow Pit area, and the Delaware Natural Estuarine Research Reserve, the St. Jones Reserve. It is now almost time to watch the individual videos for each discussion topic, including active recreation, passive recreation, conservation, economic growth and industry, and additional ideas. These presentations are only a few minutes long, but will provide some additional information to help you make informed suggestions and provide informed feedback to the questions that will follow the videos. We kindly request that you watch each video prior to answering the questions. Your feedback is very important to us. We will be hosting a second live meeting on October 4th, 2022 from 4 to 7 p.m. at DelDOT, 800 South Bay Road, Dover, Delaware, to discuss the feedback and information that was developed in this first interactive planning meeting, which was held live on September 27, 2022. Ideas and suggestions that were provided will be reviewed and an analysis will be provided on October 4th. While all virtual suggestions and feedback will be incorporated into the study, not all ideas may be included in the October 4th meeting due to the timing of information received. All who participated live or virtually in the first interactive planning session are welcome and encouraged to attend the October 4th session live. The October 4th session will also have a virtual component for those not able to attend but interested in providing more feedback. The second sessions, both live and virtual, will discuss the feasibility of the suggestions that were received, pros and cons of the suggestions, options for maintenance and funding of those suggestions, policy mechanisms to implement the ideas through zoning modifications or other methods, and a prioritization of the suggestions. I encourage you to visit our project website, which houses all of the information collected thus far throughout the study. It is populated with information as it becomes available. In addition, GIS mapping is available on that site for the study area that provides a wealth of information on a variety of topics such as existing land use, zoning, natural resources, population, and land ownership. We appreciate your participation in this interactive planning session and encourage you to now review the additional videos to assist in participating in our questionnaires. Thank you so much for participating today.